afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are here on Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM and 1570 AM on Awesome Radio. See, we've got some new radio channels. I'm so excited. God is doing some great things. You can hear us farther away now. So I'm so excited. So welcome to Family Health Matters. Again, we are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 107.5 FM and 1570 AM. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to be talking to our favorite counselor. She has been sticking with us through this whole process. We have Maya Pittman with us here on today, and we're going to be talking about focusing on the importance of self-care for our overall mental well-being and a little bit of attention on how we can help our children develop good self-care habits. So welcome, Maya. It's been a while since I talked to you. I know we've been doing some recordings. We've still been hearing your voice. So appreciate everything that you've done for us. And anything you want to share with us, any updates on you and how things are going with you in your profession?
Oh, the profession is going great. I went on maternity leave, so I now have a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. And so I stepped a little bit away from business, but now I'm back and continuing to serve clients all throughout North Carolina, introducing some new services and programs, and excited to continue outreach through, channels such as Awesome Radio.
Yeah, well, we are so glad that you have fitted us into your schedule. I know you are a very, very busy woman, but I appreciate you and the time that you share with us. I really do appreciate that. And one of the things that I wanted to add to Family Health Matters is that I've developed not a website, but an email address, so that if anybody has any questions out there, excuse me, or any topics that anybody wants to share or would like for me to do some research on or get some special guests to come in to discuss their specific topic, I want to do what's going to help the community. So our email address is FHM for Family Health Matters, FHM.wendyb@gmail.com. So if you're out there and you want to reach out to me, share some ideas, some thoughts, or even a special topic that you would like for us to bring a special guest on, you can do that. Again, the email address is fhm.wendyb@gmail.com. Okay, so now I'll put that out there. So hopefully we'll get some little kicks in on that. But let's talk about mental health awareness and focusing on self-care for our overall mental well-being. So why is self-care, Maya, important? What's the significance?
Well, when we think about May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we have to consider being aware and what that means. And it's really just having knowledge of our mental health, really understanding it, being able to perceive and develop a sense of understanding about what constitutes being well. And so self-care is at the top of the list in terms of that, because we're talking about intentional activities and practices that we engage in really on a regular or daily basis. And this helps us reduce stress and maintain that overall well-being that we're talking about. So the first thing when we consider being aware of our mental health is being aware of how we need to take care of it and what we need to do to put that into practice.
Okay, so recognizing what we need to do. So share with us on some tips or some things that we can do to actually put that to action. How do we do self-care? How does that work?
Absolutely. A great way to think about self-care is really just to think about your world. And everyone has a world that has these different arms or different facets to it. So a very important thing that we should all consider during Mental Health Awareness Month is the 8 dimensions of wellness. So the 8 dimensions of wellness are the various areas of our life that we have to even take care of. And they include, or may need help, a little help here, but they include our environmental wellness, our physical wellness, our financial wellness, our intellectual wellness, our social well-being, our spiritual well-being, and I think there's a couple more in there, but they all really contribute to our entire world. So a great place to start is to consider those different facets and what needs to be taken care of. For example, physical activity. Really engaging in any type of movement, regular exercise, not only improves our overall mood, but it really impacts and reduces certain disorders and mental health challenges such as anxiety and depression. So we've addressed our physical health, right? The other thing that we can consider in terms of physical self-care are things that maybe we don't think we intentionally have to do, like sleep. Believe it or not, sleep is a major facet of our mental health. And if we don't get a lot of it, we are drastically impacted in terms of our mood, our ability to be productive. And so sleep is one of those things that we want to engage in and intentionally engage in routines so that we can get that quality sleep, for example.
So now, with going back with the sleep part, what is the recommended? And when you say sleep, is that a continuous flow through the night, or is that sleep? You know, some people will sleep a couple of hours, they get up, go to the bathroom, watch a little TV, and go back to sleep. So we want to make sure we're doing uninterrupted sleep.
Yes, we want to really consider uninterrupted quality sleep. And so this is much more than just like rest and recovery. You know, I'm in a facet of my life now where I don't sleep more than a few chunks of hours at a time tending to a baby. And there are some days when I can and there are some days when I can really tell. And so I notice, which is what we should be doing with ourselves. I notice when I get longer chunks of sleep, my body and my mind feels a lot better. So I would encourage our listeners to think about, on average, 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but then recognize and observe how you respond to those hours. Some of us may be able to thrive and do well off of 6 or 7 hours of sleep, where there may be others who really need that full 8 or 9 hours. And so, you know, I'm a big proponent of being observers of ourselves. And so when it comes to things like sleep, also when it comes to things like healthy eating, recognizing what types of foods impact our mental health, impact how we feel physically. We have to begin observing those things and take note so we know how to move forward.
Okay, that's good. And is there a such thing as having too much sleep? I know I've heard some people say that I've slept so hard and now I'm tired when I wake up.
Yeah, sure. There can be too much sleep. You know, when we get too much sleep, what happens is it's almost like I don't know if you've left something on the shelf a little bit too long, and we got to pick it up. We got to kind of blow it off, dust it, and remove it. It's not necessarily done well just sitting there. It can kind of overwhelm the system in a sense, and we can become a little bit more lethargic. And the other thing is with naps. And so sometimes when we want to, if we get an opportunity to take a good nap, we want a good, nice 2 hour, 3 hour long stretch. But in reality, 20 to 30 minutes is really what we should be shooting for an ideal nap that is restorative, that allows us rest and has some health benefits as well.
Yeah, because I think if you take 2 to 3 hours nap, that's actually sleeping, and then you won't rest very well.
Right.
And you know, I was reading somewhere in preparation for the broadcast about the pros and cons of using the snooze button, hitting the snooze button. I was reading and it said that we should intentionally set the alarm clock for the time that you actually want to get up, instead of hitting, you know, relying on the snooze, because it takes away from some of the actually sort of what disturbing your restful pattern. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. You know, everyone has a natural sleep cycle. And so again, I'm in the world of babies, and so they can teach us a lot of things. And so one of the things I've observed with that is, you know, we have to teach babies how to sleep, and we get them on par with the day and the night. Similarly, adults are like that as well. We operate on a daytime and a nighttime system. We have an inherent cycle, and what hitting the snooze button does is interrupts that cycle. And so we may fall back into a deep sleep. We may not sleep at all. Now we're kind of sleeping on the surface, and it really doesn't help with the full reset. Not to mention, we're actually more energized when we actually get up, put our feet on the floor when that alarm goes off, as opposed to trying to sleep more, even though it feels really, really good.
I know I've tried that a couple of times, and unfortunately, when I go back to sleep, I go back into that sleep realm. I get sleep, and then the alarm just doesn't matter anymore. So,
Right, right.
So we know we're going to try to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep, quality sleep,
Sure.
uninterrupted sleep. You mentioned healthy eating. Um, Eating before you go to bed. No.
We want to kind of stay away from that. And I think the word here is balance. We want to have balanced nutrition, and it supports not only our brain function but our energy levels. And so if you can consider sleep being a real activity, sort of an involuntary activity that our body falls into, eating too close to bedtime can actually interrupt that activity, and the kind of restorative properties of sleep. And so we want to consider that when we do eat at night, if we have to have a snack, we want to do something that is within balanced nutrition. So we want to stay away from a candy bar or cookies and some of
Right.
those comfort foods, and try to think about things like a light fruit or a light cracker or grain or something to that nature.
Absolutely. Good, good. Okay, so in your list of things you talked about, social connections. Tell us up a little bit about the importance and the significance of having good connections.
Absolutely. Well, again, that social wellness is one of those 8 dimensions of wellness that I mentioned. And also, we have something that we operate off of in the field called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And these are the psychological needs that every human being needs. One of those facets is love and belonging or healthy relationships. And so, human beings need contact and connection with other human beings. And so, when we're able to maintain healthy relationships that make us feel good, that engage in healthy skills like positive communication and allow us some support and serve as a resource for us, is very important. One of the sayings that I always talk about is that we have to monitor our diet. That's one of the things we need to be aware of. And that diet isn't necessarily talking about food, but it's
Mm.
anything that we take in. And so when you consider your social relationships, you're taking in the energy of other people. And so that's why it's so important to evaluate who you're around, how they make you feel, what they give you, what you give them, and make sure that it serves as a healthy foundation and contribution to your wellness.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Not just what you eat naturally, but what you take in, what all your surroundings, not just people either. Your
Absolutely.
surroundings, your environment as well. And
Sure.
let's talk about a little bit about the environment with self care.
Yeah,
What?
this absolutely, this is nature. God has given us an environment that is a healing environment. And so when you think about what we get from the sun, vitamin D, or when you think about what happens when we put our bare feet on the ground, which is a practice called grounding, and we're
Mhm.
actually able to absorb some of the energy from the earth, and it puts us in a place of relaxation and, again, overall wellness. We want to get out in nature. We want to take nice walks after we eat if we're able to do that. We want to consider just stepping outside and taking a breath of fresh air. These things are not only grounding and centering, but the environment has healing properties again. So there may be some disorders or mental health challenges, such as depression, for example, that can be treated with things like light therapy, getting out into the sun, getting more light. And so that's what environmental wellness is. When have you made contact with the earth? When have you allowed yourself to get some fresh air and really reap the benefits of what's in our surroundings?
Awesome, awesome. And in addition to just the outside, how does your environment in your house or in your office
Yes.
affect you with your self care?
That's a really huge one. Organization and having things in their rightful place has a very positive effect on our mental wellness in terms of how we process information and just overall cognitively. So, again, when I mentioned monitoring your diet, we want to also think about everything we take in. That means everything that we see. So if you find yourself, walking past what someone would maybe define as a mess or disorder every day, we kind of absorb that. And it can make
Mm.
us feel a little bit chaotic mentally as well. And so it doesn't have to be, Molly Maid's spotless, but if you can just consider things being put in a certain order or put in a certain place, it really has a drastic impact on our mental health.
Great, great. So organizing that bedroom, organizing things in the kitchen. So it doesn't mean that you are a fanatic on it, but it just helps you decrease that clutter in. Because
Absolutely.
clutter, it can be clutter around you and also clutter in your mind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so hobbies and leisure thing. We talked about walking and getting out in the nature and looking at. But what about engaging in special hobbies? Some people have what we call like a side hustle.
Yeah. And I don't know, some people's side hustles aren't necessarily hobbies, but that would be the financial wellness box maybe.
Oh,
But when it
okay.
comes to hobbies and leisure, hopefully your side hustle is a hobby for you, and it's really about bringing you some sense of joy and relaxation. The other thing about hobbies is it allows us to kind of step out of our normal day-to-day routine, step out of the mode of comparison, which is really big today in the world of social media, and it
Mhm.
allows us to make contact with ourselves, remind us what kind of makes us tick, so to speak. It's a really huge confidence booster when we engage in hobbies and leisurely activities because we're really not thinking about anything else except for ourselves. The other thing with engaging in hobbies is we don't have to be an expert. So let's say you want to, play some golf or shoot some basketball and you're not that good at it. It doesn't matter. As long as it brings you some sense of joy, you're able to be present and not think about the past or the present while doing it. It has a great benefit to your mental health.
Oh, okay. That's really good. I like that example about the basketball, yeah, and golfing. Yeah, that's good because everybody's not good at it. But if it brings you relaxation and then it gets you out in the environment, you get out in nature, and also you get connected to the earth, and then there's physical activity. So that's great. So let's before we don't want to run out of time, but I want to talk a little bit about self care with our children. How can we help them understand, because we may get a chance to come back a little bit more to the adults, but our children are going through a lot of things in this world, a lot of things that was totally different from for us when we were growing up, and with what things that they're going on. How do we encourage them to make sure that they put themselves first as far as self-care is concerned?
Sure. Well, it's never too early to start mental wellness and emotional activities with your children. As early as babies, we should be considering their emotional health. And it goes without saying that an emotionally regulated child is because of an emotionally regulated parent. And so, with that, one of the best things we can do is lead by example. We want to
Mhm.
demonstrate good self care habits ourselves. I saw a study recently that talked about the health and physical activity of children is directly correlated to the health and physical activity of the parent because that's their world. If they see mom doing it or they see dad or grandma or aunt or uncle doing it, they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to engage and take that up themselves. The other thing about children and self-care is routine. This
Mm.
is a perfect time, especially with children who are still, operating off of the guidance of the adults around them, to establish routines where you can implement self-care practices that they can never stray from, right? So we talk about the word says train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he will not depart from it. If we establish sleep routine, for example, healthy eating, physical activity very, very early, children will not stray from those things and they'll view it as something that they have to have a part of their life. The last thing I will say about children, and I can certainly add more if time permits, is play and creativity. Again, with those Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the things at the very top of that pyramid is creative expression and creativity. It allows us to nurture our self esteem, how we view ourselves, and children have to have time for unstructured play and creative activities in order to not only facilitate emotional wellness, but facilitate the esteem and the confidence that they have within themselves, which in the long run is absolutely a method of self care.
So when you say unstructured, would I know we school has gotten totally away from a lot of we used to have recess. I'm dating myself, but we used to have recess, and that was a time to play. So what would you say? When you said unstructured, what do you mean?
Yeah, well, sometimes we have to place ourselves in our children's shoes. And again, recently I saw something that said children are criticized maybe every 9 minutes they face a criticism.
Mm,
I would say if you got a 2 or 3 year old or a toddler, it's probably every 2 minutes. But if you can think about being in a position where someone's constantly telling you what to do, they're maybe constantly saying no, they're constantly saying now it's time for this, now it's time for that. After a while, that can really have a negative impact if it comes off too frequently on the developing mind of the child. So unstructured play is when adults can establish some sort of environment that's safe, that they don't mind getting a little bit messy, and just allowing it to be what we would call a yes zone, where children, if they ask for something, we're able to say yes, and it allows them to play in a way that's unrestricted and really lends itself to the development of their self-esteem and their ability to feel confident in themselves.
Oh, great. That's really, and you're exactly right about that, because I was just thinking as you were talking that we are so constantly saying no or stop, until I like that idea of the unstructured but safe,
But
but
safe,
but safe.
and a lot of times we're saying no or stop because we are trying to be safe. We don't want them to hurt themselves. We want them to learn, but we also want to provide the opportunity where they feel like they have some sense of control in their lives without going overboard, of course. And we want to allow for them to hear yes a little bit more at times.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned healthy habits, and you talked about the importance of guiding and directions for as nutrition is concerned, and incorporating exercise as a daily routine is something that the family does on a regular basis. So the children would automatically look at that when they start planning as they move into the adulthood. That I need to know that I need to go to the gym, or I need to go outside and walk, or do something that's physically active.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And bring the children in. One of the things I do with my 3-year-old is if I'm cooking, I'll pull her learning tower over and I say, hey, help mommy cook. So she can see what's going on and she can see what's behind some of these activities. Same with exercise. Consider doing some sort of physical activity with the whole family that they can engage in. And I think we overestimate the fact that children remember how things felt, and it sticks with them for a very long time. So if they go on those walks every day after dinner with the family, or at some point maybe with mom or with sibling, they'll remember how that feels, and they'll want to keep doing it. And that's how we establish healthy habits early on.
That's good. That's good. I think sometimes we take those things for granted.
We
Those
do.
little things, we take them for granted because, one, we're so busy, or and then sometimes I feel like we're so busy doing nothing, but we're busy, but we think it's important. But those little things, like you just shared, just taking that little time to pull your 3-year-old in to help you with cooking, or at least be familiar with the fact that mom did cook. So those are very important. Let's hit a little bit on screen time.
Yeah, we want to monitor screen time. Screen time, and what we mean by that is any use of devices with children. It doesn't have to be bad, but we don't want it to interfere with some of those other healthy habits like sleep, physical activity, or eating. So you may want to consider implementing some sort of timer system where, hey, you can have some screen time, but when this timer goes off, we're going to do another activity. Another thing to consider is, again, what are you taking in, monitoring your diet. And so I know YouTube for Kids has an option where parents can pre-select what their children watch and what they don't watch. And this can not only serve as a safety measure, but it can kind of guide them with bumpers towards some of the screen time that's a little bit more enriching, and healthy as well.
Okay. Well, we parents will need screen time too. We need to limit some screen time.
Sure. I mean, and the same thing goes. If you're always on your phone and your child sees that, you have to ask yourself, how are they interpreting that?
Right.
And so I know we have a rule in our house. If our child asks for our attention and is within reason, the phones go down and they have our undivided attention. And sure,
Uh,
that can feel like an inconvenience at times, but we know in the long run, it allows them to recognize that nothing comes above the screen, and human to human contact is what's first and what's most important.
oh, that's very good. Very good. Because children have to feel wanted. They didn't volunteer to come. We invited them, and we
Absolutely.
make sure that they know that they are welcome to be a part of our world. So that's I love that. I love that. So now, mindfulness with children. What does that look like?
Wow. So mindfulness is really a superpower that we all have, and it's the ability to come to the present moment. It has extensive evidence based research in terms of decreasing experiences such as stress, anxiety, and depression. So, with children, age appropriate, and schools across the country are implementing this more into the curriculum, which is amazing. Simple deep breathing. yoga poses. So right before bed, children tend to have the most energy. This is a great time to allow them to kind of run around or to sit down and follow you in some sort of stretching activity. Every time I run into a tantrum with my daughter, I start deep breathing. And then without even saying it, she inherently begins deep breathing too. And that's the signal like, okay, I can come down, I can start grounding myself. And so again, we kind of think this is above children, but it's absolutely not. And there are practices that if we are allow them to do it with us early, they won't stray from them in the long run.
That is great. And and I'm glad you said that, Maya, because I think sometimes people think that children don't understand those things. And they look at some people who's parenting going, that child don't really understand what they're doing. But they really do. I don't think we give children credit that they do realize that if it deep breathing is helping mommy calm down, then it'll help me calm down. But they just maybe need some directions as how to do it.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of mindfulness apps that now have a kid component. So for example, Calm is one of the, most widely used mindfulness apps. There is a kids section there. And so you can play
Ah,
like certain guided meditations, stories, and it can really instruct you on how to do some mindfulness exercises and practices with your children.
great, great. Now, one thing that we don't do a lot, and well, I won't say everybody, but reading time, the significance of reading time, because we sort of go with our, technology. But what about reading time, the actual hands-on?
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about reading is, and hopefully you'll notice this, when you're looking at words on a sheet of paper, it's very hard to be anywhere else.
Mhm.
It's very hard to be thinking about that grocery list or to be thinking about the difficult conversation you had maybe 2 days prior. And so what reading does is it allows our minds to come to the present. It's like grounding for our brains. We're literally engaged with pictures or we're engaged with words, and it's very difficult for anything else to interrupt it. And afterwards, we don't even notice how much better we may feel. And so books, just having books out with children to access or having reading time, if you and your family sit down and read and the children observe that, is going to click in their brains that is something that maybe they should engage in as well.
Awesome, awesome. Now, in conclusion, what would you share with us as far as the mental health piece and the mental well-being for adults and for children?
Yeah, well, number one, self care is not selfish. It's a necessary component to your mental health. The other thing is by taking care of ourselves, we're inherently teaching our children to do the same thing. We're building a foundation of health for them. And then lastly, keep it simple. Sometimes we think self care, we have to have money or we have to have time, but we can access self care just by being creative, sitting together, talking, turning off the screens, and being with one another. That's a great start. So think about simple things that bring you joy and that bring you relaxation and consider adding them into your routine for you and your family.
Well, Maya, thank you so much for being with us on today on Awesome Radio.
Thank
Family
you
Health.
for having me.
Do appreciate you so much, and thank you for all the wonderful information that you have shared with us. And hopefully, we'll see you back soon. And take care of yourself.
Absolutely. I hope so. Take
Right.
care.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care of yourself. Make sure that you are taking care of